Yes, you can potentially turn on.
And we're looking out for a second unique Tron piece. I believe I have spotted some hanging out in Dykman's hand, but he's stressing a little bit out of this turn. It could be a situation where he's not sure where his avenue to Tron is. At the very least, with this level of thought, I would expect him to not have it naturally in his hand.
Yeah, he also doesn't look like he has green mana, so I don't know. I mean, natural Tron, your deck, or in your opening hand, you either need access to green mana so you can play things like Ancient Stirrings or Sylvan Scrying, and that opens you up to hitting Tron pretty early. But if you don't have things like Chromatic Star or Sphere, you need, like your Razor Verge Thicket or Horizon Canopy or Basic Forest to really get those going. But that usually means you're not hitting Tron until turn 4, which sometimes is a little too slow in Modern.
Yeah, and he's already under the gun of that Adept. Looks like Urza's Mine to play. Mine Power Plant looking for a tower from here. No spells. Back to McVety.
Yeah, Bolt EOT. That's going to put Dykman down to 13. We're going to get those life totals updated for you in just a moment. Seems like we're having a little bit of trouble here with our new program, but we should get that fixed right away.
Yeah, and stocked graveyard for McVety. No Bloodgas Phoenixes just yet. And starting off with a Gurmag Angler on his turn 3. Blood Crypt untapped. Shock for that one, down to 14. And Goblin Lore. Spin the wheel.
Yeah, Goblin Lore was one of the bigger innovations for this deck. Both that and Burning Inquiry in the original iterations of this Hollow One deck were not thought to be worth playing. You know, the random discard made the deck a little too, I don't want to say weird, but it had a lot of feel-bads. But those
Speaking of feel-bads.
Yeah, discarding that Hollow One is a feel-bad. But we're still churning out the damage here with this Flameblade Adept, so it's not all bad.
Right, +3 on that. That comes across for 4. Dykman should be going down to 9. But yeah, Hollow One discarded as well as a second Goblin Lore and a Burning Inquiry. Just one card in hand, though, so the odds were pretty high that Hollow One was going to go. And for Dykman, there is that turn 3 Tron. There's Karn Liberated. There goes that Gurmag Angler. Yeah,
and there's a very good chance that McVety's able to deal with the Karn on this turn. Looks like I spotted a Lightning Bolt in his hand, but he is playing White Border Mountain, so it could just be a White Border Mountain that I saw.
Right. It's a situation where Flame Wake Phoenix or a Bloodcast would have haste to finish off the Karn. There's a lot of things that he could have, but he's discarded a lot of nice ones, and notably, he did exile that Faithless Looting he cast earlier to that Gurmag Angler, so despite the requisite mana, he doesn't have that available to flashback on this turn.
Yeah, and of course, he played the Gurmag Angler first because he did not want to discard it randomly to the Goblin Lore, want to guarantee that pressure from the Gurmag Angler. The turn 3 natural Tron here from Steven is keeping him in the game for sure. We're going to have to see if it's enough, though. Depending on McVety's hand, he can churn out a lot of damage this turn. That Flameblade Adept, particularly dangerous when you have access to 3 or more mana.
And it's just going to be an attack for 1, though. I think that discarding that Goblin Lore and that Burning Inquiry, that's a huge detriment to him.
Yeah, that's a lot of potential damage being missed out on, but that's how the dice rolls sometimes for this Hollow One deck.
Yep, just Bloodstained Mire and pass after he sets Dykman to 8. And we'll see what the follow-up here is for Dykman. This is a situation where we might even have a turn 4 Ulamog, and that could very well be lights out.
Oh, for sure. Ulamog, one of the better upgrades to the deck. After it lost Eye of Ugin, there wasn't a huge reason anymore to play the one of Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, as your ultimate finisher, when something like Ulamog the Ceaseless Hugger, exiling 2 permanents and being a very fast win condition, was usually good enough.
Speaking of exiling 2 permanents, Karn's going to go to work, take care of the Flameblade Adept. Not a huge reason to plus that against McVety's 1-card hand. Horizon Canopy's the land for turn, and here's Worldbreaker.
Yeah, 3 copies of Worldbreaker here in Steven's deck, and it's going to be doing some work here. The body 5/7 is going to check most of the threats that McVety could put onto the battlefield over the next few turns, and it even has reach, so it keeps things like Flamewake Phoenix from doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, with the Horizon Canopy being the land, Dykman is down at 7. Back on McVety's side after he has his Blood Crypt exiles, draws for turn, cycles Street Wraith. No action, though, and it's just right back to Dykman.
Yeah. Dykman's life total is a little low, but the Hollow One deck does not have a ton of reach, and if I'm not mistaken, McVety has played 2 copies of Lightning Bolt already. Steven, I would guess, is just going to try not to use that Horizon Canopy, if at all possible, to stay away from that pivotal 3 life.
Right.
And he's probably going to keep this Worldbreaker on defense until he can solidify a second blocker.
Starts with the Chromatic Star, filters that for some green mana. Here's Ancient Stirrings. Probably wants to keep the World Breaker back to block a Flamewake Phoenix. Remember, that creature does have reach. If you could find something like another Haymaker, maybe a Wormcoil Engine, which I believe is in the Ancient Stirrings cards, he'll be pretty comfortable.
Yeah, my guess here is Steven's going to play it super conservatively. He can threaten to end the game next turn if he attacks with World Breaker, plays this Wormcoil Engine. And he may choose to do exactly that, just to shrink the number of turns that McVety has. Although I would not be surprised to see the Warbreaker stay on defense for one turn, because the connection with that Wormcoil Engine against McVety is probably lights out anyway with that 6+ lifelink.
Right, and he does take Wormcoil Engine. That's the play. Chromatic Star Kicker, and as you said, looks like no attacks with the Worldbreaker.
Yeah, I think the only window here for McVety to win this game is land plus Flamewake plus Lightning Bolt, and Steven recognizes that, keeps the Warbreaker back, and takes down game one.
Yeah, McVety's going to pick things up. Definitely some stumbles on his side, some issues with the cards discarded to his Goblin lore, but, you know, live by the sword, die by the sword.
Oh, yeah. So this matchup after sideboard gets a little bit better for the Hollow One deck. Access to Ancient Grudge is a pretty big deal. The rest of the sideboard, though, doesn't look too promising. The Fatal Pushes, Grim Lavamancers, things like that are more for helping you beat things like Infect, Spirits, and Humans. Unfortunately, just the Ancient Grudge just seems like the only thing that's really going to come in. Maybe the Liliana of the Veil, maybe the Terminate, but I doubt it.
You have any thoughts on Thoughtseize in this matchup?
Thoughtseize could potentially be good. You know, you do have a bunch of things like Lightning Bolts, maybe some copies of Collective Brutality that don't do a whole lot, so you need to find things to get out of your deck. And if you could cut all your removal spells and bring in Thoughtseize, Ancient Grudge, that's probably enough. It all depends on how Max values things like Lightning Bolt in the matchup, because sometimes Lightning Bolt actually has value against Tron, for specifically when they play Karn and Minus. If they play Karn and Minus immediately, sometimes it's hard to do those 3 points by attacking, because usually Karn is eliminating one of your attackers. But if you have that Lightning Bolt, you can usually clean up the Tron or the Karn pretty easily.
Yeah, but then there's some main deck Fatal Pushes he's got to get out.
Yeah.
So figure out some things with sideboarding on that side. For Dykman, see what he has to like. He has 3 Path to Exile, 3 Thought-Knot Seers. This is actually pretty common in Tron nowadays for matchups where you want to be a little bit leaner. 3 Rest in Peace, 3 Timely Reinforcements, and 3 Nature's Claim. This is actually pretty stacked for this matchup.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's no secret at this point in Modern's history that white is the best color for sideboard cards. And we saw, 2 rounds ago, the Amulet decks were splashing white for these powerful sideboard options, things like Path to Exile, the other sideboard options at their disposal, like Rest in Peace, Stony Silence. These are all cards that are huge upgrades in a lot of specific matchups. Obviously, Steven not going to be playing Stony Silence because the deck is full of artifacts.
Right.
But he does get access to Rest in Peace, which is a great anti-graveyard card. Completely locks down things like Dredge, as well as a number of other strategies that utilize the graveyard. I think it's going to be pretty good here, taking care of things like Flamewake Phoenix, Bloodghast, and making Gurmag Angler basically unplayable. But luckily, McVety still has access to Flamewake Adept, Flameblade Adept, as well as Hollow One as non-graveyard related pressure, which is going to be important here. Other than that, I do like Path to Exile to take care of some of those early creatures. Timely Reinforcements not only to gain life, but to block those giant creatures like Gurmag and Hollow One, as well as double blocking the Flameblade Adept. Don't really love Nature's Claim because it's pretty narrow. Don't really like Thought-Knots here because it doesn't match up that well against the larger threats that McVety can play. So yeah, maybe Path, and then definitely some number of recipes and Timely Reinforcements. But you can't over-sideboard with Tron. That is definitely there's a breaking point where the more cards you side in, the worse overall your deck becomes.
Yep, that all makes a lot of sense. You don't want to break up the engine. Meanwhile, over on StarCityGames.com, we're selling Guilds of Ravnica. All kinds of goodies there. You see the bundles, booster boxes, those unique Planeswalker decks. So this is a great set. We're coming up on Ravnica Allegiance, but Guilds of Ravnica in Standard for quite a while yet.
Oh, yeah, and I love the Planeswalker decks. They're usually chock full of really sweet cards. I actually pre-ordered a case of Guilds of Ravnica just to make sure I could get everything because there were so many cool cards in the set. Love me some Ralizet Viceroy. I've been using him a lot out of the sideboard in my Izek Drake's deck, and you can open those in a booster pack today.
Yeah, that's a really powerful Mythic Rare.
Love it.
got some hems and haws at the beginning, but we have those singles and foibles available online, of course.
Flywables.
Blah, blah, blah. At go.starcitygames.com/GRN.
All right, players are shuffling up here for game 2. I just want to say this. I really love team events, and this is such a unique team event because we could have just ran a modern tournament, right? Just a solo modern event where your wins and losses, those are set in stone. Instead, we chose to give players the option to play with teammates who they can rely on, and it's interesting to see. For the most part, everyone's just playing the deck they're most comfortable with. And we've seen a lot of teams that are literally just 3 different decks. There's not a lot of sharing going on anyway. So the unified thing was always, to me, kind of a feel bad because it forces you to play something that you're not necessarily comfortable with sometimes if you want to play with a certain teammate.
This configuration doesn't do a ton of that, but you see right here on the left side of your screen, there's 2 Ancient Stirrings decks.
Right.
That would cause a fight with unified rules.
Yeah. Now, the unified rules, definitely a downer as far as Team Constructed is concerned. Very happy to see that go away here for this tournament, and I'm definitely loving the 2 and 3 of same exact 75s in some of these matchups.
Oh, yeah. Record-setting tournament attendance on the SCG Tour here. 1,122 players. It's a crowded room.
That's a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
I saw the number on Twitter earlier, and I actually, audibly gasped. I was just like, what?
Right? Yeah, obviously I've never played in an open this big. It's the only one of this size. Really great to see everybody coming out. Big fan of this just team modern format. With attendance like this, wouldn't surprise me to see more of these.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the players are definitely loving this type of format. Modern has always been a hit, and team events are usually fairly popular, and combining the two and not having any sort of restriction is definitely a plus.
I'm really rooting for a team that's just multiple teams in the top 8 that are just 3 of 1 deck. I want to see as much of that as possible. The triple burn squad, triple Tron squad, I am here for it.
It looks like McVety here is taking a mulligan, if I'm not mistaken. But these Hollow One decks aren't really deterred by mulligans too much. They have a lot of cards that are discarded randomly. It's not a big deal. Things like Burning Inquiry lose you a card. Faithless Looting technically loses you a card. But you make up that equity by utilizing cards from your graveyard.
Right. He is going to 5. It's going to be a problem. Doesn't mulligan quite as well as a deck like Dredge.
Right.
You are right, though. You can do it with very few tools. At some point, though, you got to have some cards in your hand. You can't really do the Hollow One thing too consistently from 5 or fewer cards.
Yeah, the odds of you discarding your Hollow One to your Burning Inquiry goes up a little bit.
But there's definitely explosive things you can do. I mean, turn 1, land, Burning Inquiry. You still have 4 cards. You can still have 4 Hollow Ones.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we don't get to see the triple Hollow One too often. I have seen the quad Hollow One only on Magic Online, but I've seen it on random screenshots on Magic Online multiple times. I think upwards of 5 or 6 times, which seems like a lot.
If it happens, you are legally obligated to screenshot
picture,
that.
yeah,
Nobody's not doing it. You have seen every instance of it, actually.
That's fair. All right, looks like McVety's happy with his 5, taking a look at the top of the deck with the Scry. Let's see how he likes it.
It's a tough one. McVety definitely a methodical player. He's going to map the turn out here.
Yeah, but once he starts going, he is fast.
Oh, yeah, when he figures it out, he knows what he's doing.
The man can slang some mono red. I'll tell you that much.
Keeps on top with the Scry, leading on Scalding Tarn. We'll see how top it is.
Yeah, this is actually always a tough spot for me when I'm low on cards mulliganing. You can choose to utilize the Scry ability from your mulligan along this side, this fetch land, and not crack it on turn 1, but usually that leaves you without casting anything on turn 1. And since a lot of these mana bases in Modern are filled with fetch lands like Scalding Tarn and such, along with these Shockland mana bases, you don't get that freebie on the Scry too much when you're on the play. One of the reasons I like to play some of these monocolor decks or even colorless-based decks in Modern is because you actually get to utilize the mulligan rule to a much greater extent.
Yeah, and there was a Flame Blade Adept in hand that McVety had to pass on there. Looks like Faithless Looting was the card kept on top. For Dykman, the turn 1 was a Power Plant and a Chromatic Star. So there was the Faithless Looting when we're back on McVety's second turn. Discarded a Bloodghast and I believe a Flamewake Phoenix.
Yep.
Bloodstained Myers land for the turn, bringing back that Bloodghast, and I believe he picked up a Hollow One, which he'll be able to cast this turn.
Yeah, and if he has a Street Wraith, he actually can cycle that, play the Hollow One for free, and then utilizes the Flamewake Phoenix's ability, return this turn and attack, but it looks like he's just going to pay the hard 1 mana for that Hollow One.
Yeah, a little bit shy on the full effect, but still a really good start for 5 cards, and there is the Hollow One.
Yeah. Steven here has access to Path to Exile off of the Chromatic Sphere if he so chooses, but every card that McVety gains back undoes that mulligan quite a bit. He's already gotten the Bloodghast for free, has a Flamewake Phoenix in the graveyard that can threaten to return later. As he just has all engines running, and if he gets that extra land, that allows him to flash back to Faithless Looting at no cost.
Right, and it looks like Dykman, he has that white mana. He has the Path to Exile, but he's kind of has to choose between that and I believe a Sylvan Scrying in hand because he does not have a fast avenue to Tron. So he's got to figure that out before he really goes into it this turn. And yeah, just redundant Power Plant. That's the land for turn.
It's not great, Jim.
My name's Ryan. We haven't worked together before, but
I know. It's like the... It's an old reference, I'm sorry, I'm an old guy.
There's another Chromatic Star, a Sphere rather.
Non-matching Chromatic Spheres. Come on, Steven.
He matched his Tron lands. That's the big one.
Okay. Come on, Steven.
Here he's cracking on the Sphere. I believe we're in McVety's draw step. There's Path to Exile and Hollow One.
Yeah, the reason he's doing this during the draw step, you slightly increase the odds that McVety draws a land for the turn, but the land entering the battlefield tapped means he does not get to use that mana this turn.
Basic mountain found from McVety.
It's all about those little edges. Modern Legacy, those are formats built on the little edges, though. So.
Oh, absolutely. Bloodghast coming across for 2. That'll be the first damage to Dykman, going to 18. And here's that Flame Blade Adept that's been in McVety's hand since turn 1.
Yep. There's a reasonable chance next turn that McVety's able to return the Flamewake Phoenix. He has a land in hand, which he can play if he so chooses, to flash back the Faithless Looting, or he can play something like Burning Inquiry and pump that Flame Blade Adept's power up to 4. Yeah,
it looks like he has Goblin Lore at the ready, so potentially a very explosive next turn.
Yeah, and with Steven missing a second Tron piece on turn 2, even though McVety mulligan to 5, his draw might actually just be good enough to take down Steven this game in his Tron deck.
Right. Dykman has a couple redraws available to him. There's the Chromatic Sphere in play, I believe another in hand, but he doesn't have a Tron piece yet to play before he casts Sylvan Scrying. It's a pretty awkward tension point when you don't even have your second Tron piece yet.
Yeah, and usually you like to wait until you have your second Tron piece before you start cracking Sylvan Scrying and things like that, mostly because you might naturally draw the other one.
Right.
And if you choose one first, you still have basically 3 bricks left in your deck, versus if you wait, you have, 8 hits.
Yep.
So.
Dykman's going to start. Looks like he's on the Chromatic Sphere. Thinking about what color to make, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, he could go for white here and try to hit something like Rest in Peace to lock down the graveyard from McVety. Unbeknownst to him, the graveyard is not playing a huge role this game right now for McVety. The only thing it would hit, really, the flashback on the Faithless Looting and the Flamewake Phoenix.
Rewarded for starting with that Sphere, though, as I believe Urza's Tower was the pickup.
Yeah, so now going to Sylvan Scrying for Tron Piece, play Tron Piece, and then the turn after, he has access to 8 mana, I believe. No, 9 mana.
A lot.
A lot.
Ooh, and I like this sequencing by Dykman. Picked up the tower, casting Sylvan Scrying. He's going to get that third Tron piece, the Urza's Mind, which I believe will be the land for turn, disguising the fact that he does have Tron on the following turn. Ooh, actually, is that... It's another power plant?
This is right.
Yeah, all right. I thought he was up to something real weird at that point, but he corrects it. Here's the Urza's Mind.
I'm not a Tron guy.
Right.
I don't think that's the right one.
Right. Far be it from me.
Yeah, Steven corrects that mistake in the middle of resolving his spell. So, a legal takesies backsies, if you will.
Right. No relevant game actions had occurred.
Hasn't even shuffled his deck yet. Still.
Right. Put out the third power plant and thought, wait a minute, this ain't right. It's good poker hands, but not so great for the Tron deck. Third chromatic sphere for Dykman. We're back to McVety, and there's that goblin lore.
I just want to point out McVety is a Hollow 1 player who does not look before discarding. Love it.
Yes.
I have to look.
He's not afraid.
I always look.
Yeah.
I want to know what I'm sweating.
Right.
You know.
It's like lightning bolts.
I think that was a Tassiger and a Mountain all being discarded. Not 100%. But that Flameblood Adept currently 4 power. Going to return the Flamewake Phoenix here. Crash in for 8 points.
Dykman dropping the 10.
Ooh, Thoughtsei's a really strong draw here. Hopefully from McVety's side, he's wanting to take away something like Oblivion Stone, Ugin, the Spirit Dragon, or one of the big beefies. Unfortunately for him, Steven's hand is very good.
Well, it's very good in some respects. There are multiple similar threats. You have the Karn Liberated and the Worldbreaker, along as that Urza's Tower and little glare in the hand. Don't have a great look. I believe there's a Horizon Canopy that's been hanging out in there, and a Path to Exile. That'd be the 5-card hand.
Sure.
None of these are Oblivion Stone. None of them are Ugin the Spirit Dragon, which would be the best possible. Yep. McVety would love to strip one of those away.
Yeah, so he could go for the unique take here by taking the Path to Exile, which would effectively neuter one of his threats over the next turn or two. Or he could choose to take something like Karn Liberated so that Steven might be a little stranded on colored mana over the next few turns. But I don't know. Plus, there also is the recursive nature of the Worldbreaker that is a little annoying too. So,
looks like the take is Worldbreaker there. The Worldbreaker, that reach, it's a good blocker. It can be a real problem, but Path to Exile, Karn Liberated are leftover spells.
Yep. And you are correct about the Horizon Canopy. A really neat addition to the Celestia Tron decks. Not only is it a fine dual land for casting your green spells game 1 and your white spells in game 2, but later in the game you can turn one of your Ancient Stirrings or Sylvan Scryings into a cycle.
Yeah, just having important. That redraw is pretty powerful. And there's Tron online, Urza's Tower. Here's Karn Liberated. Where's that going?
Yeah, it's definitely going to minus, and then Dykman still has access to Kraken Chromatic Sphere for white mana and using Path to Exile to keep his Karn alive for as long as possible.
Yep. Goes for the -3, Flameblade Adept exiled. McVety still has Flamewake Phoenix Bloodghast. So he has enough to attack down the Karn, but there's that Path to Exile you mentioned that can stop this battlefield from doing it.
Yep. Depending on what Steven drew for the turn, it could come back to bite him here by minusing on that Flameblade Adept. Obviously, it represents the most damage possible because of the potential for things like Burning Inquiry, Faithless Looting, and the like. But destroy effects take care of it forever. Exile effects like Karn, Path to Exile can take care of Bloodghast and Flamewake Phoenix forever. But you know, I think Steven definitely putting value on that exile or the prevent the most damage over the next few turns.
Yeah, for example, if Dykman draws Oblivion Stone and he has to destroy these sticky creatures, he would rather have exiled them. But as you mentioned, manages the Flameblade Adept, the most potential damage in one creature.
I mean, there's a chance he just dies, you know,
yeah.
if he minuses on, I mean, or he just burns a Path to Exile on it.
And here's a second Flamewake Phoenix from McVety. He's going to figure out his attackers. Again, that Path to Exile is face up. Both players know about that.
Yeah, here McVety can get really aggressive and just send all the damage at Steven, or he can choose to send all 3 at Karn, which will almost 100% get rid of said Karn.
Yeah, he wants to manage it. There's just so much that the Tron deck can peel. It just resets its entire battlefield. It's a tough turn for McVety.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I like taking out the Karn. Depending on the last card in McVety's hand, you know, the Path to Exile is going to take care of something, and I think you're just, you know, you want to get the card off the battlefield because you're not going to do more than 4 damage if you send everything at the face.
Do you think there's an argument for just locking in 2 damage on the Karn so that it can't -3 on the next turn?
No, there's definitely some value to that. But then the plus, if McVety's not able to get that last card out of his hand, that plus represents a future minus as well as taking away a card from hand, which ultimately turns into -1 card off of Faithless Looting that you could filter away like a dead spell.
Yeah, very good point. It looks like there is a split, though. Both of the Phoenixes coming at the Karn and the Bloodghast going towards Dykman.
Yeah, my guess is McVety is able to play this last card out of his hand. Not sure exactly what it is, but that makes the most sense here. Valuing the damage to face a little bit more than guaranteeing the Karn dying.
Right. A 1-mana threat would be excellent for McVety as a leftover.
Also really like how he split these attacks. Because if he puts Bloodghast and Flamewake Phoenix at the Karn and he chooses to protect his life total as opposed to the Karn, he's guaranteed to... well, nope, that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to leave that one there. Just floating in the ether. If he wants to protect his life total, he has to Path to Exile the Bloodghast and not a Flamewake Phoenix, and Bloodghast is strictly worse in this matchup.
It's easier to get Bloodghast back.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. I got you.
It's easier to get Bloodghast back, but... the flying means that Wormcoil Engine doesn't gain you a bunch of free life.
Yeah. Crack of the Sphere for Dykman. That's got to be white mana. Thinking about what to Path to Exile. Real argument between protecting the Karn and protecting the life total. And goes for the Bloodghast.
Wow. That's
Down
really
goes Karn. Yeah, at 10 life, he's already at the range where the Bloodghast, other Bloodghast would have haste, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the thing is either he has another Karn in hand and he just planned on casting it this turn anyway because he wasn't going to get that free minus. He also recognized that McVety doesn't make that attack unless he's playing that last card from his hand this turn, whether that's a land, whether that's a Flameblade Adept, or even a Lightning Bolt is not relevant, but the plus on Karn basically do nothing. And Steven just protecting his life total as much as possible so he can get further into the game.
Yeah, and it was Flameblade Adept. That was the last card for McVety here. Back on Dykman's side, let's see if he can pull off some other Haymaker. Needs to have something pretty quick.
I mean, anything here is good. Even even the World Breaker here out of the graveyard is still pretty good. Takes care of one of the lands, which could restrict the things McVety's able to do over the next turn, while also giving him a blocker for the Flamewake Phoenixes.
Yeah, so sack on the redundant power plant. Horizon Canopy is the land for turn. Cast World Breaker, he goes down to 9. Exiles a land for McVety. And he has a nice blocker for those flyers. And McVety was empty-handed, so we're back on his turn. He's drawn up to 1 card. Wants a pretty good one here. Starts with Flashback Faithless Looting. Probably not a great one in the hand.
Yeah, and but it could potentially turn into a really good one. Wow, that's a lot of damage. He peeled Burning Inquiry. That's going to make that Flameblade Adept at least 6 power this turn, if he so chooses. Plus the 2 from the Flamewake Phoenix is going to put Steven all the way down to 1, which will turn off the Horizon Canopy and any future green and white spells for the foreseeable future. Yeah,
and Dykman's already been through 3 Chromatic Spheres. It's pretty tough to get colored mana from that point.
Or at least white mana. You know, you usually play some number of basic 4s, but I feel like a lot of those have been supplanted by things like Horizon Canopy in order to play those sideboard white cards.
Yeah, 2 forests looks like in the main deck. You typically see 4 or 5 with the mono green variant.
Right. Now, there's 2 Horizon Canopies, and those are effectively dead once he's at 1 life. 1 Razor Ridge Thicket, which will enter the battlefield tapped. And the 2 forests, and that's about it.
Like this for McVety. Burning Inquiry just throws the top 3 cards of his deck into the graveyard. Pumping the Adept here.
Love it.
And yeah, that Flameblade Adept, that's up to 6 power.
Yeah, at this point, it's basically just a sorcery speed Lightning Bolt that can maybe mess with Steven's hand. And going to put Steven all the way down to 1 here and restrict his access to colored mana significantly.
Not a lot of consequence to Skydred for Dykman. There was a Relic, an Expedition map, a Tron piece. But interestingly, as you're talking about there, some Ancient Stirrings in the hand. Can't use that Horizon Canopy. He's at 1.
Yeah, he does have access to, looks like a Karn Liberated, though, so he could play that right now. Minus on the Flameblade Adept and still just keep the Warbreaker back to block the Flamewake Phoenix. And that could potentially allow him to survive this turn. Also has the option to just go ahead and crack that Horizon Canopy. But with the Sanctum of Ugin drawn for a turn, I think the Karn is definitely super high upside to play.
Yeah. Sanctum of Ugin, as you mentioned, there's the land drop, so he can set up a future turn by casting some large spell here. Karn Liberated certainly checks that box.
Yeah, and he could go for a number of things. My guess, probably something like Ulamog to take care of some of these lands to make sure that McVety can't play black spells if he takes away the 2 black sources.
Starts by cracking the Horizon Canopy, picks up Basic Forest. He's already made his land drop this turn. It was the Sanctum of Ugin.
We're gonna get that fixed real quick.
Yeah, so we'll pause that forest should not be on the battlefield.
Yeah, it happens quite a bit when you start making a bunch of game actions. It's obviously like an inconsequential forest.
Yeah, so there it is. No forest.
It doesn't change a whole lot. He would have been able to cast Ancient Stirrings this turn, but we got that fixed, and now everything is fine.
All right, here's Karn Liberated. That's going to be a trigger on the Sanctum of Ugin. Dykman accepts. Drum up some colorless creature here.
Yeah, Walk-in Ballista could potentially protect him from the Flamewake Phoenix, but that Wormcoil Engine's coming out to play, and if he ever connects with it, I believe the game will be over.
-3 on the Karn. There goes the Flameblade Adept. It makes sense. Can't really block that one because of its menace. And not clear how many lightning bolts are left over in McVety's deck, but he needs something that can do damage now. And there's Flamewake Phoenix. That's going to be lethal. We're going to game 3.
Yeah, I love these hasty threats off the top. McVety had a lot of outs there between Bloodghast, Flamewake Phoenix, Lightning Bolt, even maybe like a Collective Brutality. Just a lot of ways to win the game there, and found one.
Yeah, quite a few peels. As you mentioned, any creature with haste. Pretty low. He's already played a number of lands, so pretty high odds to actually close from there. Really good for a 5-card hand. Great showing for the Hollow One deck.
Oh, absolutely. I think that just goes to show that the raw number of cards in your hand in Modern sometimes just doesn't matter. Obviously, you're more likely to discard your better spells if they're in hand if you cast something like Burning Inquiry or Goblin Lore. But for the most part, if you have the ability to use your graveyard, the deck is already built to function on less than 7 overall cards in your opening hand. A lot of your cards are net negative overall card advantage, but you get a lot of value out of these graveyard-related synergies.
So you're watching us now on twitch.tv/SCGTour, but you can also catch us during the week every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Versus Live. Yep. Some of the greatest minds on the tour, including yourself.
Yeah, and next week, me and Ross are going to be doing a deep dive into this Ravnica Allegiance standard format, picking apart all of the previews that have come our way thus far. I'm very much looking forward to playing, oh man, I forgot the name of it. The Reclamation, it's like Wildlife Reclamation or...
The enchantment?
The enchantment that lets you untap your lands every turn.
Yeah.
It looks like the most busted card I have ever seen.
Right?
I don't know how that's a card. If all of my spells are instants, I get double.
I'm excited to see how that plays out, right? Because you read this card and you think it's busted, and that means somebody's wrong, right? Either they shouldn't have printed it, or your read is wrong, and I like waiting for the dust to settle on that.
I mean, essentially, it's Heartbeat of Spring, but
one-sided.
But one-sided, right? So it's not like insanely powerful, right? It's not like a Mirari's Wake, where it's one-sided and it also does a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, it requires some specific card types. You have to have Flash or be an instant to really take advantage of it.
Yeah, but when cards like Chemister's Insight are in the format, it makes sense that being able to play at instant speed is not very difficult, and also you can utilize it pretty well. So I'm definitely looking forward to trying out like a Bant control deck, right? Specifically because there's the new Time Twister that draws 7. Each player draws 7 cards, and then if you played it during your main phase with Addendum, you get to put the enchantment on the battlefield.
There's been some numbers flashing on the back tables, but I think I just heard Andrew Elenbogen actually won the game. So they're going to game 3 on the back table there, and Kyle Boggemes was a 2-0 victor over Alex Hahn.
Yeah, so if either of these players on the right side end up winning game 3, that will win them the match. Both Teagan and Dykman need to win their game 3s in order for their team to take the W this round.
Dykman does finally get to be on the play in this set. That will certainly help him. Looking for a hand that has a little quicker access to Tron, I imagine, in this game as opposed to game 2. Pretty slow
for sure.
Start.
Yeah, playing the same Tron lane on turn 1 and 2 is never an ideal start for a Tron deck.
Nearly played the same Tron lane on turn 3.
Well, you know, corrected quickly.
Players are drawing up their opening 7. We'll see if we can have 2 7-card hands, and we do. No mulligans this time.
All right. Well, we might have, effective mulligans if McVety's able to rip Dykman's hand apart with a Burning Inquiry on turn 1.
Right. Urza's Tower Expedition Map is the play for Dykman. Hollow 1 definitely has a wide range of what the turn 1 looks like. Bloodstained Mire for Blood Crypt, McVety to 17. I'm always rooting for Inquiry here.
Yeah, I just want Max Payne and not the video game.
Right, nobody wants that.
No. Or the movie with Mark Wahlberg. It's not good.
Weird.
Hey, don't you slander Mark Wahlberg's good name, sir.
Here's Burning Inquiry. What's going to happen?
That's a good question.
I like Wahlberg a lot in The Departed. I think he was very good in that movie.
Yep. I liked him a lot in Four Brothers. It's just Four Brothers.
Tell-all title.
Yeah.
Right, Lightning Bolt to land and a Burning Inquiry discarded for McVety. Nature's Claim, and didn't get a look at the other ones for Dykman.
A Forest and doesn't matter. It's fine.
Something.
It's gone forever.
It's an Ancient Stirrings.
Okay.
It's a good one to hit.
That's true.
No hollow ones.
Nope. If Dykman has access to a second Tron piece here, which he does, now next turn on 3 he's going to have access to the full Tron, which unlocks a lot of very powerful spells from his deck.
Urza's Tower, Urza's Mine, map online for the power plant. He's really humming. McVety not having a threat on turn 1, especially on the draw, does not bode well.
Oh, for sure. If he needs to play something here, or it's going to be lights out. 7-man next turn. It looks like he's already flashing a card at me.
Not bad.
Yeah, and with things like Chromatic Sphere, Star, it's very easy to find another threat to follow up, even if that single card isn't good enough.
Well, here's the Thoughtseize for McVety. We'll get a full look at the hand. Chromatic Sphere, Karn Liberated, Sylvan Scrying, Path to Exile, Oblivion Stone.
Yeah, a very strong hand. The Burning Inquiry didn't seem like it disrupted him very much. May have even pushed Steven towards that second Tron piece. You never know.
Right. The Karn probably figures to be a bit better than the Oblivion Stone right now if McVety can't get some threats online. So that's going to be the take.
Yeah, and I'm not even positive McVety has another land. But just have to wait and see. I was wrong.
Black Cleave Cliffs, and here's Gurmag Angler.
Yeah, Gurmag Angler particularly effective in this strategy with all the Burning Inquiries, Faithless Lootings, and Goblin Lords. It's very easy to fill up your graveyard for that Delve mechanic. Let's see if he picks the right one.
Yeah. Expedition Map, sacrificed by Dykman.
There it is.
Let's find a power plant. There it is. This time he does want the power plant.
All right, so this turn, no more Karn to play, but a number of options at his disposal. Can't quite play and pop the Oblivion Stone to take care of the Gurmag Angler, but has the option to use Chromatic Sphere plus Path Exile if he so chooses.
Yeah. Yeah, can set up the stone, cast the sphere, path the angler. No real pressure to go for the Oblivion Stone just yet under 1 threat from 20 life, right?
It's definitely true, but as long as the Oblivion Stone is on the battlefield or in hand, McVety has very little incentive to overplay his hand.
Right.
So as long as Dykman doesn't apply any real pressure, that Oblivion Stone actually acts more as a deterrent than anything else.
Yeah, specifically for things like Gurmag Angler, Flameblade Adept, Hollow One.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't exile, so it won't be super effective against things like Bloodghast or Flamewake Phoenix, but it does kill all of the creatures that get up to 4 power to recur said Flamewake Phoenix.
Right. And McVety has not demonstrated any Bloodghast so far in this game.
Yeah, his previous 2 turns were Burning Inquiry into Thoughtseize, Gurmag Angler. Pretty powerful start.
Team was giving it a think. Dykman throwing his card for turn. Must have been a spicy one.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the real question is here unless that card was the nuts.
Right. That scripted turn, just play the stone or don't, but use the Chromatic Sphere, leave a path to exile. That's already a pretty big draw to that turn.
Well, there is an argument to actually play Chromatic Star into, Chromatic Sphere into Sylvan Scrying this turn to unlock green and white mana permanently. As it stands, if Dykman goes for Path to Exile off of Chromatic Sphere, it leaves him without access to green mana for future Ancient Stirrings and Sylvan Scryings. But if he cracks it now, plays Sylvan Scrying, goes and gets something like Horizon Canopy, that gives him more access to colored mana, as well as the ability to cycle said Horizon Canopy later in the game.
Yeah, looks like the draw was Relic of Progenitus, cast Chromatic Sphere, and Relic passes to McVety. Definitely a question of how aggressively you want to turn the Relic into a card. That much makes sense.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting here for McVety's side. Steven actually played this in such a way that Max isn't quite sure if he should overextend or not. Very likely this Gurmag Angler going to get either hit with a Path to Exile, or Steven's going to try to set up a more powerful Oblivion Stone. But it looks like he's going for full-on protection.
Yep, crack of the Sphere. There's the Path to Exile. Gurmag Angler down.
It's a very common theme we've seen so far from Steven Dykman in this match, is protecting his life total at the cost of getting any amount of card advantage in this matchup.
Yeah. Really wants to stay at a healthy total, and Gurmag Angler hits harder than most of what McVety's up to.
Yeah, I think the only one bigger is potentially a Flameblade Adept with a bunch of triggers.
Right, Flameblade Adept sometimes. Not in this game, though. Yeah, Dykman very safely at 20.
Yeah, that could be an argument to slow roll the Path to Exile for just a little bit, just to make sure that, well, this might change things.
Yeah, Burning Inquiry post-combat for McVety.
McVety here has the potential to... He has like a very small window here to get something out of Bloodghast on the battlefield if he discards it. He has priority while the spell is resolving or once the spell is done resolving. So if he plays a fetch land, there is no way really for Steven to permanently get rid of the Bloodghast before he can crack the fetch land and put it on the battlefield. Let's see if it plays out like that.
Yeah, he gets to get under the Relic of Progenitus that way.
Right. Burning Inquiry, one of those cards that you wish could only be cast on Magic Online.
I do like the pointing method for live Magic.
Oh, no, I want full-on die roll. If you're going to do it right, you know? Full randomization.
Right, you came for the full experience.
That's like Clark Klein Ironworks and then forcing your opponent to demonstrate the loop. Sometimes they just don't know how it works.
I have definitely talked to players playing in this tournament that don't know how the deck works, playing that deck.
Yeah. I mean, they could figure it out, and once they realize, like, oh, I netted 1 mana, or I netted 1 card for 0 mana, there it is. That's the infinite loop.
Yep.
We did it.
There's Hollow One from Max McVety. Bloodstained Mire cracks that. Dykman's going to respond by exiling all graveyards and Relic of Progenitus.
Yep.
Doesn't want to get hit by a Gurmag Angler.
That's a smart play. I think McVety was 1 short of being able to use the Blackleaf Cliffs to play a Gurmag Angler from hand. And with the trigger on the stack, Dykman taking care of the graveyard ensures that nothing fishy is happening this turn.
I get it.
Because it's a big old fish.
Nothing zombie is happening that turn.
Nice. Yours not as good.
Yeah, just you know, I'm just doing my best, man.
Same.
Blood Crypt untapped. McVety going to take some damage for that. And here's Goblin Lore. believe McVety on 13 from there.
We'll confirm life totals in just a moment. That shock land out of the deck from the fetch land does hurt. Is that a fish?
It's like Thoughtseize, Street Wraith, and Stomping Ground are the discard. 12 actually the life total. Fetch and shock. There it is.
So he still had a very high life total, though. He got a bit of a reset on his hand from the not only the cracking of the Rogue Boggemes, but the fresh 3 looks from Burning Inquiry. So it's possible his hand has a big threat to play this turn, whereas before he did not.
And just a hollow one. Dykman's still at 20. Just tapping 1 Tron land usually means we're starting by spinning our tires. There's Chromatic Star.
The star here could pop for either white or green. It just depends on what's even values at this juncture. His life total is super high, so if he has reinforcements in his deck, it's no longer that good.
Yeah, significant edge on life total. The 3 tokens also not how he's closing the game.
Right. It could potentially prevent a bunch of damage. My guess, if he's gonna just like get some green mana, play something like Scrying or Stirrings, and here he chooses Sylvan Scrying to make sure that he can have green mana for the rest of the game off of this Horizon Canopy.
Yep, turns the colors online. Should still be 1 colorless mana floating.
Yeah. Still has the Oblivion Stone even after the random discard. Wouldn't be surprised to see him play it right now just for mana efficiency's sake. But there is some downside to doing that, just simply because McVety probably has some number of Ancient Grudge in his deck right now. And by playing the Oblivion Stone there, you do turn it on right now.
Right. Attack from Hollow One. Little chatter on Dykman's side of the table.
I would love if that's a chatter bluff, and he doesn't have something like Path to Exile, but he does.
Yeah, you got bad news for your excitement level. It's like 4 connects, and here's a Thoughtseize for McVety. Ancient Stirrings, Path, and second Urza's Mine.
Everyone always tried to outsmart Thoughtseize.
Ancient Stirrings is the take.
Top of the deck.
Casting a Bloodghast.
Yeah, so stranded with that Path to Exile in hand, but still could cast it on the end of turn to permanently deal with something like Bloodghast. Chooses to save it.
Yeah, that's definitely the argument for not just firing it off on the Hollow One, right? He has the Oblivion Stone already online. Wasn't afraid of the Ancient Grudge and didn't get hit by one.
Yep. I mean, he's played a pretty long Game 2 and a pretty long Game 3. Hasn't seen it post-sideboard yet, so no real reason to be overly afraid of it.
Right. Dykman's going to use the Horizon Canopy to cast Sylvan Scrying, going down to 15.
Yep. Has access to a second Horizon Canopy he could choose to get right now as a cycler. But it looks like it's just going to go get Resurrect Thicket for future colored sources that don't deal him damage.
This is a funny one. Yet you make a conscious choice building this deck. Do you want Brushland or another Horizon Canopy or the Razorforge Thicket?
Yep.
It's really funny because you don't want your first 3 lands to be not Tron.
Right. So Razorforge Thicket has a significant downside for sure.
But it's definitely a deck that struggles most against the aggressive decks, so it makes sense to try to protect your life total.
I agree.
And he does find the second Horizon Canopy.
Now with these 2 lands, he could crack them at any time. Oblivion Zone he can use to protect his life total this turn, while also permanently dealing with a Hollow One and probably dealing with a Bloodghast for a reasonable amount of time. McVety doesn't want to play extra lands, so, you know.
Yeah, so we do have an update on the back table. Looks like Andrew Elenbogen has won the match. These players seem to be invested in actually finishing their game. Maybe we'll keep it parked here. We'll figure that out real quick. But Elenbogen, McVety, and Boggemes, they have won the match.
All right, this Tasker is going to apply some more pressure here. But that Path to Exile is going to take care of it permanently.
All right, the players are going to play it out, but we are